Gerard Brown and Melinda Steffi, two Philadelphia-based artists that have the synergy with translating forms of communication, writing and music and color to create these beautiful artworks. But I'm not going to dive too far into that because it's quite a layered process that the two of them have gotten themselves into, and probably at this point will never find their way out. So I want to start with Gerard, who's a professor at Temple University, and an artist that I've known for quite some time, who he and Melinda brought this concept to me a while back, I guess. And so it was a terrific opportunity to include them. If you've been to the galleries before, you know that we've had a series of exhibitions that have sort of been exploring science and technology as both a medium, an instrument, and a source of information for artists creating their works. Well, some of the shows that we've had have been the technology has been very primary, very dominant in the artworks, a lot of interaction with the works. In this show, we're taking another spin, and we're looking at a show where technology is more subtle, more in the background, but very much an important tool that the artists have used to create and explore these concepts that they have. So I'm just going to wing it over and if you could all move to the front, please, that would be great.
You see okay?
And we're going to start with Gerard Brown. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Many thank yous to you before we get started, if you don't mind. I'm first going to thank Melinda for working so hard on this. We've been working on this for about a year now, right?
At least.
And Mary for her enthusiastic support of this for many, many months. I want to thank Jane Irish, who did an extraordinary job on her essay, and if you haven't grabbed a copy of this yet, please do.
Right. Thank you.
A really terrific example of artist writing. Also need to acknowledge Ann Schaefer, and her assistant Evan Laubenschlager, who helped with the printing of the portfolio prints over there, and Neil Herzog and his crew, who worked on the large Dibond pieces with me, and Tyler School of Art for helping make this financially possible, and my family who put up with all this. So I'm going to talk about technology when it comes up, but I want to talk about translation, because that's what really drives this for me. I teach a class in translation studies for visual artists at Tyler School of Art, and I spent a good deal of time thinking about this, because for me, translation offers us a really useful way of thinking about creativity in the 21st century. For a long time, being creative meant, having this idea of your own, back in the day of Bach, you invented it, But nowadays, translation provides us with an opportunity to gather material from different sources, or to get in touch with different cultures, to get in touch with our own culture and language from different times, to engage with the world in a new way. Translation, people who study this will tell you, takes three basic forms. There's translation within a language, is like, imagine, if you will, visual aids. Maybe some of you are familiar with, Seamus Heaney's famous translation of Beowulf, which is, in English, though it doesn't look like it. There's the more familiar kind of translation we talk about, interlingual translation, moving between two different languages. And there's intersemiotic translation, or moving between two different sign systems, such as moving between writing and music, which is where we spent a lot of our time. My work is sometimes, I'm going to take a little detour and talk about codes in languages for a second, because it's important to think about these things in terms of being able to be read. I'm just really interested in the idea, maybe it's because I'm around artists all day and they're kind of like happy to have it mean anything. I'm really interested in the idea that it means something really specific. So all of the paintings and prints that I've brought to show you guys are translations of specific messages that deal with the idea of seeing and reading. And in many ways they're codes. These are nautical flags. Any yachters in the room? Retired Navies? I missed the guy at the last show who could do this. Codes are really different from languages in that the input and the output are the same. But languages, we have syntax difference, and that's where it gets really interesting to me. When we translate from one language to another, we have to account for changes in the construction of meaning in those languages. So how, when Melinda moves from music to painting, she assigns meaning to things. It becomes incredibly interesting to me. That's why what first attracted me to her work. So let's walk over this way, and I'll tell you a little bit more. And if you don't mind, we'll let the guys with the camera.
Doesn't translating mean moving from one place to the next?
It means literally carry across.
Yeah.
So, here we go. Here we go.
This is fantastic.
So, we'll exercise. So, Melinda's going to talk much more ably and much more professionally about music. But I wanted to talk about an intersemiotic translation piece in this project, which is called The Hours. And maybe faintly heard this at 6 o'clock, this music. We're trying to compete with the bell tower over there. And just about every hour, a short and very obscure musical piece emanates from the gallery. And they are drawn from these 20-something books over here. And if you come over here and open them, they'll play very quietly, for you, and then the passages are marked. And they describe different times of day. And the way this works is it's a language that I came across a couple years ago when I was studying languages, called Sol Re Sol. And Sol Re Sol was invented in the 19th century by a French composer who saw the world around him exploding in terms of access, in terms of commerce, in terms of travel. People were leaving the farms, moving to the cities. This was the height of the Industrial Revolution. And he thought that the world needed a language that would allow them to communicate much more easily from nation to nation. So he proposed music as the ideal example of this. And the dictionary he wrote and translated in his own invented language into a dozen other languages produces these very peculiar songs when you translate into it. What I thought might be interesting for you guys is to play with that distinction of code and language for a second, is to not decode what he wrote, but to try to translate other things. So first, as by way of exercise, let's go over here and take a look at these. If you were fluent in signal flag, if you're a fluent reader of signal flags, you would recognize this passage from Judith Butler, where she's talking about how important it is we learn to read not only texts, but images and sounds if we're going to have a healthy democracy. And gradually that becomes much more challenging, just like real democracy. But if you're really good at reading signal flags, then you also know that they have meaning not only as letters, but as short phrases that can be deployed to indicate where you're going or what kind of problems you might be having with your ship. So instead of saying, an active and sensate democracy requires that we learn not only how to read texts, but also images and sounds, if you were to apply that other syntax to these, it would read, keep clear. No, keep clear. Yes, I am looking for another person, and I am turning to the left. I require assistance. I am turning to the right. Keep clear. I am maneuvering with difficulty. My vessel is stopped and is making no way. I am at sea with dangerous goods. Watch for signals. Keep clear. I am not going back for the man overboard. I need help. I am moving with difficulty. So it fascinates me that these generate other kinds of meaning. And so with that in mind, I wanted to see what happened if we took Sudra's language, which we took passages from great examples of literature, including many of the letters used by such famous writers as Shakespeare, and tried to apply his language to existing melodies. And everyone can think of Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Can you hear that in your head right now? Twinkle, star. Please. How often do you get to do that in an opening? It's awesome. If you run that through Sudra's Sol Re Sol dictionary, what you get is, one is not always oneself. In my home, I had many questions. Is tomorrow when I get to be myself? Or never? for some people, there is no time. That's an incredibly existential reading of Twinkle Twinkle Little Star that's hidden in there. Another one would be Frere Jacques. Yeah. We didn't rehearse this. Very good. Da, da, da. This was harder to do. But if you run it through the Sol-Re-Sol dictionary, you get, if we come to a bad idea on a day when nothing can be done, what is this? Where is he who can help? So, what interests me about these is, not entirely so much what they produce, but what they make possible for us, how they give us a chance to think about language being a little bit more productive. So, with that idea about how things change and transform, I want to let you listen to Melinda talk a little bit about her work.
Sure, thanks, Gerard.